carried on them. It's not something that has started recently, but conflict between rival gangs over the drug dealing has been intensifying in the world, especially in South America. And there are countless victims during this kind of conflict, and their murder method is really frightful for me. So sometimes I really want to know the starting point of establishment of gang community sharing common destiny from the members of a gang. And sometimes I just want to ask them what are the first motivation for them to establish such a community in our society. And I just want to ask them why they have to get involved in criminal activities. So nowadays, members of a gang are deeply rooted in our general society, and they are not necessarily poor people living in a slum. But there are some cases that normal people, like having a good job and having a good family, having good money, are the members of a gang. And for example, surprisingly, police officer and firemen and salesmen and school teachers and students, or maybe the members of a gang, and they fit in our society. So people around us possibly may be members of a gang. So in Japan, we Japanese we Japanese don't have such a dangerousness that involves us in a gang conflict. But in South America, especially in Brazil and Venezuela, dangerousness that involves people in criminal activities and conflict between gangs is serious problem hiding their lives, because it's like they live with members of a gang side by side in everyday life. So it is really difficult for them to distinguish between what is danger and what is safe, especially in the slum. So maybe the biggest target for gang to recruit is boys living in slum. So boys living in a slum have a great resentment against a society that gave them such a terrible circumstance. They experience a family collapse, family breakdown, and they lose a brightness to get out of this situation, and their mind is fully covered with the feeling of despair, with no brightness to the future, and they can't even trust their neighbors. They can't even trust their parents and family, and they have no familiar friends. So they always have to be alone at home without going to school. So, and they are not educated, so they are not prepared to work outside to make a living themselves. So it is not that easy for them to survive in our society independently. So because society doesn't want to accept them at all. So these boys are perfect target for the gang to recruit, and a very important fellow for them to share mutual understanding, mutual sympathy of underprivileged circumstance. So this will bring their genuine camaraderie among them, and they treat each other more than biological family. For example, we're your family, and you're the member of our family, and we fight for our belief, and we fight for our justice, and we fight for triumph over the society that abandons us. And you fight for us, you fight with us, and we protect our family at the risk of our life, or something like that. And probably their mutual understanding, mutual over reliance will create resentment against a society that doesn't accept them, and that forces them to tolerate such a underprivileged circumstance. And thinking this way, their frequent criminal activities are a kind of retaliation against a society that gives no mercy to them. So this is my personal speculation, but I think their driving force to do criminal activities, to do frequent criminal activities, is like they want to establish a kind of receptor that will recognize their existence in their society, and they believe their justice, with which they're talking about, will save a lot of people having the same circumstance with them. And they believe the influence obtained by striking back at our general society will grow the size of a receptor controlled by their justice. So they have no sense of guilty because they believe they're doing the right thing. Rather, they think society pushes them as under unreasonable justice and principle and invade their territory. So they believe their justice is true justice, and their justice is just in contrast to general justice we believe in. So there's no doubt that they have a question like why we have to follow the justice of principle of hostile existence, hostile organization, hostile society. So if there's one thing I can say for sure about this, a society is not a justice in a sense that it will not protect the social weak, but society is just one of the rational, well-ordered program to make people obey the ruler of the time conveniently. So it is pretty obvious that there are people who want to protest a social rule or something. So this is a really difficult problem to be solved, I think. But this problem may be caused by poverty and distance between poor and rich. But I think the fundamental reason that they establish a community to fight for their justice against the society, it's like a society will still has a big vulnerability in social infrastructure that accepts people with unprivileged circumstance beyond our imagination. And people feel like they don't want to, people in our society, normal people in our society feel like they don't want to risk their life to accept any troubles that do harm, that cause a harm to their lives, because they also have to protect their lives. And mostly we despise these people, this gang, these members of a gang, as a social garbage that we don't want to get close to. And moreover, social system in the world only reaches out to people who are accepted as a citizen. And social welfare, that we enjoy the benefit from the country, like a social ID numbers and going to school to receive a really good education and working for a company, just exists for those people with citizenship. In other words, people not registered as a citizen in a country who are born and grew up in Islam are not given the right to enjoy this kind of benefit in the first place. So probably this is the limit of capitalism, I think. But personally, I think gang those changes as time goes by. And when I observe their criminal activities through news and TV and newspapers, their justice and camaraderie have been fading out of their consciousness, I think. Instead, their primary reason to maintain their communities and making money. So gang communities changes to the one that does anything for making money, even if the activity is totally far from the original belief of the community. So from my eyes, the outstanding gang organizations that are talked about these days on a newspaper or on a TV news are just criminal organizations. This is my opinion.